So, hello, good morning everyone, welcome. I would like to first thank the Creative Mornings team and to Orange Lab for this opportunity. So, my name is Bárbara and I'm here to talk to you about design management. And this month's theme, as Jürgen was saying, is backwards. And that got me thinking, what if we put ourselves in someone else's places, in someone else's shoes? So if you're a designer, put yourself in the manager's position. If you're a manager, put yourself in the developer's position. If you're a developer, put yourself in the designer's position. What is their struggle? Where do they come from? Do they share the same attributes as you do? Are they completely opposite to you? What kind of input do they bring to your work, and how do you work with each other? So design management, as Catherine Best would say, is the management of design. But obviously it goes a little far beyond just the combination of these two subjects. For me, design management is more about a methodology. It's more about a process to give the importance of the whole process of design within the development. So it's kind of more a way of looking at things. It's a way of life. It's an holistic view of the whole design process. So in a workplace, and for example, you would get the designers versus the managers, you would get the right-brainers versus the left-brainers, and you would get the why versus the how. And what do I mean by this? So obviously the right-brainers are the designers and the left-brainers are the managers. And the designers tend to focus on the why. The designers tend to focus not on answering the question, but questioning the question itself. So they like to go deeper. If you know the work of IDEO, sometimes they just don't like to face the problem that is presented. Sometimes they go even further. Is the problem asked the real problem? Is there something deeper that we should worry about? And as for managers, they tend to answer the how. They have timings to complete, they have clients to answer, so it's very keen for them, it's very important for them to be quick, to have a quick answer. So they don't get time to as designers, to pursue the why of the question. They need answers quick because they have a client to answer to. And what happened to me, what I realized is that sometimes designers and managers have trouble speaking the same language. And sometimes it's because it just so happens. Sometimes, as it happened to myself, it's because they're even physically placed in the workplace on the opposite sides of the workplace. So they don't even, if they want to, they don't even mix because they're just placed in different sides of the organization. So to tell you just a little short story about myself, I worked in 7 years for an advertising agency, for 2 advertising agencies, and I know it's not a long period, but it's not so short either, believe me. And I had the opportunity to work as a designer in the creative department. I had the opportunity to briefly work as an account manager in the sales department, and mostly as a DTP designer, and at last as a graphic production assistant in the production department. So what happened to me was, because I had this experience, I could easily see the whole process I was talking to you about, that holistic vision of how it happened throughout the different departments. And that made me even more aware of this communication problem that I was talking to you about, because it was it was clear that while I was in the creative department, I would feel that the managers were speaking a different language, and vice versa. While I was in the sales department, sometimes I knew I could hear the other managers talking about the design work, and they really didn't know what to talk about it, how to talk about it, and even to explain it to the clients. And that's a big issue, and that made me very uncomfortable. How in a workplace where we should work together do we have such a big problem to deal with? So I decided to go back to school, and I decided to look for something that could solve this problem. And then I came to design management, which put together design and management, so I thought, hey, maybe this is the answer. And when I went back to school, I started a post-grad, and then I followed up with my thesis. And of course, I kept my perspective as a designer, so I knew how design was important to organizations. I knew what a difference it made throughout the whole fields of intervention of design within the organization. But what was most important to me was the perspective as a non-designer, which I kind of had already a little bit, but it made me more aware of how important non-designers were to design. And it made me aware that you don't have to be a designer to make a difference, which was kind of something for me because I'm a designer. But it was kind of cool in a way because it will come together, it comes together, it makes sense. So it really felt like it was the answer to my problem. So my perception as a designer was, I can sum it up in two things. The fields of intervention of design are the same fields of intervention of organizations, and that design brings new dimensions to the organization. So towards the first thing, the fields of intervention of design being the same fields of intervention of the organization, most of you can probably relate to this, whether you're a designer or a non-designer, because you can find corporate identity, communication, products and or services on environments within a design perspective or within a non-design and designer perspective. So if you have a business, you would need, if not all, at least one of these fields. And if you're a designer, well, you probably want to do the whole thing, but sometimes you just focus on corporate identity, or sometimes you just focus on a particular product if you're a graphic industrial design. But all of these fields of intervention, as you can see, are the same fields of intervention of organizations. So there was this kind of, I'm just summing it up for those who are designers. This comes very natural, but it was important for me to, after having my experience in the workplace, to confirm it. And then to these fields of intervention of design and then the organization, design brings new dimensions. So to each one of them, we hope, we aim as designers, that each of them has a function, a structure, and a meaning. So these are three dimensions that design, if worked correctly, can fulfill the fields of intervention. So it's a pragmatic, a synthetic, and a semantic dimension that design brings along. So my perspective, okay, so again, whichever the field of intervention of the organization, you will unequivocally find a field of intervention of design, okay? So my perspective as a non-designer was, as I was saying, a little bit more important to me, okay? It was the other side. It was putting myself on someone else's shoes. So design is too important to be left to designers alone, and you should always reframe the question and think backwards. So this is a quote from Angela Dumas, and it was very cool because in the Service Design Jam that happened this year, they made some bags, and this was the quote that was on the bags. And I was very happy because this quote is very important to me. This quote talks about silent design. Silent design is something that Angela Dumas and Peter Gorb talked about, and it talks about all the design decisions that are made by non-designers. And it's okay. It's okay that there are non-designers taking design decisions. We as designers have to embrace it and make it part of the whole work. So when I'm talking about, when I say we should think backwards and always reframe the question, I don't know if you've seen The Dead Poets Society, but it's kind of a pop movie. So if you don't remember the movie right along, you might remember the Robin Williams, while he has the students and he's going carpe diem behind them. That's a very big scene. But this is not the scene I'm talking about. This scene is where Robin Williams, John Keating, he makes the whole class step up one by one in his desk and take a look at the class from a different perspective, okay? And this is what he says. Just when you think you know something, you have to look at it in another way. Even though it may seem silly or wrong, you must try. So as a designer or as a manager, put yourself in someone else's shoes. Even if it's silly, even if it's wrong, even if you don't even want to mind about this is something that it's not your problem. Just do it for a second. Where did they come from? What is their struggle? Can you help them? Can they help you? Try to bring it close. Try to look at things in a different way rather than your own way. Of course you have your own problems to deal. Of course you have a ton of things to think about, to worry about. But take a second to think in the and where the other person is coming from. This was very clear to me one time while I was working as an account manager. I got this phone call from a client, and he was giving me feedback on a project, and it was the most horrific, disturbing feedback I had ever got. And it wasn't even about my work. It was the work of a designer within the advertising agency. But I felt blocked. I really didn't know how to answer to this client. It was very disturbing. I really blocked like I'm blocking now. And what I came to realize at that time, it made me very clear how important the work from account managers was, because they kind of created a filter to the designers, because they were there to protect us from all these disturbing feedback from the clients. And I know if you work as a freelancer, you might or might not get that, but in an advertising agency, for me, that was brilliant, because that made me kind of keep my inspiration going without having it held down by a disturbing comment from a client. So the other day, Mike Press, which as Rachel Cooper and João Branco, he's one of the gurus of design management. On Twitter, he asked, "Tell me in a tweet, how would you define design leadership?" And I replied, "It's like being a captain of a ship, focused, organized, and most importantly, part of the crew." So it's important to be focused, it's important to be organized, but for me, again, most importantly is to be a part of the crew. So you're in a ship, maybe it's my Portuguese sailing background talking, but for me, it's all about how everyone's important. Everyone can make a little difference. You can. It doesn't really depend on what type of work you do. It really depends more about your attitude towards stuff, towards communication, towards talking to other people. So to me, design management is about collaboration. Design management is about not thinking of the imposition, the limitations that the managers or the other non-designers do to your work as limitations. It's to think of them as a path, so that you know where you both should sail. Okay? Design management is about co-authorship. This is not my term, this is a term from João Branco and Conceição Lopes and Rachel Cooper. Co-authorship, it's to me a beautiful way to put it. So think of the people you work with as authors by themselves, and think of the input they can bring to the work. And design management is about integrating this interdisciplinary nature of design within the organization. So design, it's still important, but the nature, its interdisciplinary nature is far out the most important thing about design, okay? So, to be perfectly honest, it's about human skills. That's what I came to realize when I started, at the end of my study. I had the opportunity to interview the 6 of the DME award-winning Portuguese organizations. So the DME stands for Design Management Europe. There's also Design Management Institute, and these institutes tend to give the right importance to design management and to make it more approachable to everyone else. So these are the 6 design award-winning Portuguese organizations that won the DME. And what I came to realize was that it's not just about the process, as I first start talking about. It's not just about giving the right importance to the design within the organization, being in which level you are talking about. But it's about an inspiring individual. It's kind of as simple as that, because from all the people I interviewed on these organizations, there was always either the person I was interviewing, either talking about someone else. It was always about a particular person contaminating all the others in coming together, in giving feedback, in receiving feedback, in listening, in forgiving, and not being afraid to make mistakes and to do it all over again. Oh, it's wrong, let's go to the starting point again. It's not being afraid and to be okay with having mutual respect for everyone. And as I was saying, to give the right authorship to the other person you are working with. And another important thing was that some of these persons that I interviewed, some were designers and some were not. Some were CEOs, and one of them was a designer that just went to this organization to do an internship. He was just there for an internship, okay? And he made the difference. And eventually, of course, they won the award for other things as well, but also because of his input. And he was just an intern, okay? So to sum it up as much as I can, design management is about an holistic attitude, as I was saying. So to be able to do that, you have to put yourself in someone else's shoes. You have to change your point of view. You have to look at things in a different perspective. It's about bringing designers and non-designers together. And for this to be possible, you really have to be humble. It's as simple as that. You really have to listen. And if you're very angry, just take a step back and take your time. Take your time and respect the person who is next to you, because he or she will respect you back. Because in my belief, anyone can be a design manager. I had that experience. I thought you had to be a designer or a manager, but it goes far beyond that. So taking again John Keating's words in Walt Whitman's say that the powerful play goes on and you may contribute your verse, and what will your verse be? Okay, so have a nice day. Thank you very much.